right after South Africa lost to Nigeria in Chan. A man who never held back. Actually, when I got the news last night, I didn't, face to face with Shakes that often, but whenever I phoned, whenever you tweeted him, and it wasn't just me, but everyone else has said this on Twitter, whenever you tweeted to Shake Kungwane, who had a very educated left foot and a good football career, you always knew he'd reply, and you always knew he'd had a laugh, and you knew he'd say it like it was, but couch it in such a way that it was well said, but also don't take it to heart, because he's not really having a go. He's just giving his opinion. And Shakes, anyone that watched SuperSport's coverage of the PSL, Shakes Kungwane and Zayn Musa were a great comedy duo, and gave us a bit extra to our analysis in South African football. Even the games that were particularly boring and goalless, you knew you could watch Shakes and have a good old guffaw at the way he described football. I shocked. 2 weeks ago there was talk of him being ill, and he kind of, his Twitter output reduced, but he's still he made an appearance. Didn't he make an appearance during the cup final, Nedbank Cup final? Wasn't he one of the? I was watching that, SABC and SuperSport, and he was around for that a couple of weeks ago, and it was just the news that he was in intensive care kind of was just filtering through when his brother Aaron confirmed to Robert Marawa on the telephone that his brother had passed, and his wife Boosie, or Precious, and his children. What can I say, guys? All our thoughts are with them. To a man who was always good to me, good to this show. Very, very difficult death in football, I think, and a complete shock to everyone at the age of 43. That a bloke who played football until about 31, he had a knee problem, had to pull out, didn't he? Guys, if you're new to soccer balls, I spent most of my life covering football in England, and the beginning and end of my career, I suppose you could say, covering football in South Africa. But right from the start and now right at the end, Shake Kungwane has a particular role in South African football that can't be replaced. I've tried to write some kind of blog. If you follow me on Twitter at NEALCOL, Neal Cole, and our hashtag soccerballs with a Z on the end, you'll see a tribute to Shakes that we've tried to put together, with a couple of his interviews with us. And just saying that I don't think we'll quite see someone like Shakes again. He had the confidence to talk humorously about any character in South African football, which a lot of people don't. Unlike some players and some analysts and media people, he didn't think he was too important to reply to the ordinary fans on Twitter, to retweet them and to follow them and to come back to them and to answer their questions. And going through, I think both Maz and I were talking today about going through the at Shega10 account is fascinating. I think his second last tweet was Friday, my favourite F word. Classic. My second favourite F word, Friday. Classic Shakes Kungwane. Comfort, we've been talking about, haven't we, all morning. Mark Fish, who is now a co-presenter of Soccer Balls, not well this morning and couldn't come in. And as he said, when I spoke to him on the phone about an hour ago, it's going to be very emotional. Perhaps it's a good one to miss. And because Mark was often on SuperSport with him, and on the right end and the wrong end of some of his jokes. And I know that Mark Fish passes on his condolences too, from the Balls radio crew generally and from Soccer Balls in particular. We want to say, Shakes, I hope you're in a better place, mate. I hope there's no one there with an offside flag, and I hope they don't mind that you're very left-footed. But reading some of the stuff, there's some brilliant stuff. Was it Paul Dolezal was the Kaizer Chiefs coach that pulled Shake Kungwane in and said to him, mate, you've got to stop passing to people when you're looking the other way.
You're
and Shake
confusing
said,
my players.
Yeah, it was confusing everyone, says Dolezal. You don't look where you're passing, and of course that was Shakes' way. He knew enough. He had enough vision, peripheral vision, to pass the ball with one, looking one way, and pass the ball the other. And there's some great stuff about the top scorer that season being given his award and thanking his granny. And Shakes says, "Well then, mate, get your granny to pass the ball to you to make your goals," because Shakes was a great assister, wasn't he? Yeah. Of goals when he was at Kaizer Chiefs. Although a lifelong Orlando Pirates fan and grew up in Alexandra, never left Alexandra, always had his friends in Alexandra, always a township bloke, a Kazi-style bloke. That's how he liked to describe himself. And we were happy to speak to him on that basis. You know, there's sometimes this problem with the conjunction between, you know, broadcasting football and township style football, but Shakes was able to bridge that gap. He was able to throw in the vernacular whenever he felt like it, and to make even people like myself who struggle a little bit with some of the vernacular languages. I wasn't fortunate enough to learn them when I was young. And Shakes would throw in the vernacular, but you could understand it because that's the way Shakes put it. He would throw in a whole string of words and you'd know exactly what he meant, because Shake Kungwane was Kazi style. Shake Kungwane was the arch Kaiser Chiefs star who supported Orlando Pirates. Shake Kungwane was the bloke who could say and do anything, and we'd follow him with that. And he wouldn't suddenly stand out like a sore thumb. He would be the voice of South African football with a laugh. And I think that my particular tribute to him was there'll be no more laughing in the studio. And that's very sad. We've tried desperately to get hold of Zayn Musa. I'm a bit worried about Zayn because I know Zayn's a very sensitive bloke and he hasn't twittered for a while, and we're trying to phone him this morning to get his take and to get his tribute. So we'll get the tribute from Vina Maposa, the Kaiser Chiefs Communications Director. He's lined up after the break. We'll get to Kaiser Matang Jr. He's in lectures today, but he desperately wants to speak about the legend that was Shake Kungwane. I find this quite difficult, and I've always found death and sport very difficult because we're all geared up for extra time and penalties. We're not geared up for death, but it comes to all sportsmen, and is a difficult thing to throw into sport when you want to talk about the World Cup. You want to talk about, Bafana playing New Zealand Friday morning, isn't it, 9:30? After that very effective draw against Australia from a makeshift Bafana side. You want to talk about football, but it's hard to talk about football when you're talking about a bloke who just last week you could phone up and you could say to him, Shakes, give us a hand, help us out. They're all in training, mate. What are we going to do? And he, Neely, just call me. And I remember that first time I called him and I said, Isaac, because I thought, kind of sometimes you don't call people by their nicknames. I said, Isaac, can you help us out? This is a couple of years ago. And he said, well, who's Isaac? Because that was his real name. And he always wanted to be Shakes, Shackledino. And then when he lost his Twitter sign-on as Shackledino, and he had thousands of followers, and then he had to change to Shega 10. And we had to get to him, and he built up his following again. Typical Shakes, to forget his password. Never late, but now he's going to always be late. Shake Kungwane.
Balls.co.za